The spiritual attack is a high-level deceptive agenda orchestrated by malevolent fourth-dimensional entities, the Alpha Draconian reptilian races, to control humans and try to prevent them from evolving into their full potential. Every human comes onto the planet with an incredible amount of potential, which when fully explored could shine a light so unique and bright to help transform the planet into the paradise that is supposed to be for every life form. But you see, there are entities out there that are offended by this light, simply because they benefit immensely from keeping most of humanity in the dark. These entities will do anything to prevent humans from evolving into their full potential, and their greatest weapon against humanity is a spiritual attack. Spiritual attacks have been depicted by religious institutions of the world and across the movie industry and the media as some sort of demonic encounter where demons have to be banished by spiritual experts, when in reality, it is a fear-based attack that's targeted towards the human mind, so it is mostly psychological. Now, just to be clear, there's a lot of demonic activities like black magic and other forms of occult practices happening at the core of spiritual attack. There's absolutely no doubts about that. But the goal of all of these practices and every other strategy employed by the attacker in a spiritual attack is primarily to deceive the target into falling for an illusory fear-based reality that has been created by the attacker. Once they succeed in deceiving the target to fall for this illusion, they can then use it as a control mechanism to control the life of the target. A very common example of this kind of trick can be seen in the God theory. So first they tell you about a supreme entity called God, sitting in some place called heaven, that's keeping accounts of all of your earthly activities. And then they tell you that your job as a human on the planet is to serve this entity. And as a reward, you get to receive the best of everything you could possibly imagine when you die someday and meet this entity in heaven. So you do not get to receive these accolades here on earth. No, that's not how it works. You have to die someday and go to heaven to be qualified to receive these rewards. That's the hook. Now here comes the fear part of the equation. If you do not serve this entity and fully abide by all of its rules and regulations, then you get to burn in an unquenchable lake of fire for eternity. You see the psychology? Now use money and fear to enforce this philosophy. And what you've just done is successfully deceive humans into wasting their entire lives away, all in hopes that they'll get a better one when they die someday and go to some imaginary place called heaven. This is a classic example of an illusory fear-based reality created to control humans. And this right here is the worst form of crime against humanity. This is a typical example of a spiritual attack on your life. Now, as a human, once you finally wake up to the ultimate illusion, which is the matrix, you will realize that just about everybody is under the influence of some sort of spiritual attack the moment they step into this 3D reality. Most people just don't realize it till it's too late. This may sound strange, but if you look very closely at the human society, you will soon realize that most of the structures that appear to be serving humanity are in fact systems that have been strategically designed to prevent humans from evolving into their full potential. The family structures to begin with, the religious system, the educational system, the corporate system, the government, the media. These are all different forms of deception that have been established at different levels of the human society to trap humans in mediocrity. Why do you think that you're given a name, a religion, and a template on how to craft your destiny the moment you're born? Why do you think that at a very early age, you're taught to identify with certain kinds of people but stay away from others? You think it's because the people you're told to identify with are better than the ones you're told to stay away from? Why do you think you're told to go to school, obtain a degree, get a job, work 9 to 5 for the rest of your life, and inevitably die average someday? These are not coincidences. This is called conditioning, a very common strategy used in spiritual attacks. You're being gradually molded to fit perfectly into the matrix. Now remember, all of these philosophies and ideologies are taught to you when you're young and your mind is most fertile. So in reality, you were targeted with these spiritual attacks the moment you were born. But you see, there's levels to this. The kind of spiritual attacks that we're born into is first level. And although there are no basic levels to a spiritual attack, this level is much more straightforward in comparison to the next level, which is more advanced. This first level is mostly meant to keep you asleep and prevent you from waking up to the matrix. And basically, It's made up of many false and fear-based belief systems that have been programmed into the psyche of humans for ages. And so these programs have become native to the human way of life. At this level, every program works automatically from the day you were born, which is why most people end up creating an identity that's mostly based on false and fear-based belief systems for most of their lives. You see, spiritual and psychic attacks are the devil's primary tools in stopping humans from evolving into their full potential. A gang stalking attack, on the other hand, is a more organized next-level spiritual and psychic attack that's meant to stop light workers from shining their lights on the planet. Click the subscribe button below and join the team at Gang Stalking Secrets to learn how to master and defeat any kind of spiritual attack.